Whether you're in sales, you're an entrepreneur, or maybe you just want to make a lot more money, there's one thing that is certain. You need to create more money into your personal income. And for that to happen, you need to make it for your business income. What am I talking about? Sales. So watch to the end of this video because I'm going to give you 7 obscenely easy sales techniques that will boost your customers and sales this week. So let's get stuck in then. 7 obscenely easy sales techniques that you can use to get more customers and more sales this week. What am I talking about? Well, let's break it down. Let's begin with number 1. Set your target. Always set the target in sales. And if you're in sales already, you know that there's sales targets. And some people shy away from this. But get this right. The mindset around targets is what's going to drive you to be a more confident and learning, developing, growing person, whether you're an entrepreneur, a salesperson, or you just want to make more income. So setting yourself a target that you hold yourself accountable for is key. Think to yourself, how do you win today? Yeah, something from my own personal journey, along my journey of growing businesses and being an entrepreneur and being in sales, because as an entrepreneur, guess what? You're going to have to learn sales, because if you can't sell, then you're not very good at being an entrepreneur. I'm sorry to say that, but you've got to be able to get income. And it's not just sales for your customers, by the way, but sales for internal customers. If you're an entrepreneur and you're growing a business, you need to be able to sell to your own employees. You need to be able to hire them and get them on board too. So you've got to get really good at these sales strategies. So number 1, set your target. What does great look like? What does good look like? How do you hold yourself accountable for the things that you do in that day? So for instance, if you want to go and make £1 million this year or this month, depends on what your target is, well, first things first, break it down. If you was to take the 52 weeks in the year, break them down, then £1 million divided by 52, that gives you a target that you've got to be hitting each week to be on track for that. We call this budgeting, by the way, in business, budgeting. What is the budget that you need to be hitting in order for you to actually achieve your goals? So step 1, know your numbers. Break it down even further. The 52 weeks in the year, break that down into the 7 days of the week. Yeah. If you're working 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, it doesn't matter. Do your figures on that to understand what do you need to do today to actually achieve and win the day. What's this got to do with sales, Lewis? Well, sales begins with the right mindset. Okay. If you don't know your numbers and you don't know that direction that you're going in and what great looks like, then how do you know that you're even doing a great job in sales? So sales is the outcome, remember. What causes the outcome to happen is what you need to be thinking about. So don't just focus on the outcome of more sales, which equals a bigger business or a bigger income. Think what actually causes that sales to come in. So if you want to make a lot more money, whether you're in business or if that's personal income as well, then you've got to think about what are the behaviors that you need to do that day. Do you spend your day planning? Do you spend your day, faffing around trying to find things, or do you spend the day going, right, I need to make sure I'm doing 100 calls today, 50 calls today, 20 calls today? And if you're on your own and you don't have a manager or a director actually looking out for you on this, then guess what? You better be very, very fucking disciplined. Okay. So be disciplined, set your target, and think to yourself, I want to make sure that I win the day today. So what sort of figures do you need to be hitting? Whether that be number of calls, number of outbounds, number of conversations. You choose what you want that to be. But ultimately, that is the lead indicator for the outcome indicator, which is more sales. So number 2 is accountability. We've already mentioned about discipline. How do you start to keep yourself accountable? Because if it is to be, it's up to me. Repeat that to yourself. If it is to be, then it's up to me. What I'm talking about here, ladies and gents, is the mindset. Yeah. Now that you know your numbers, step 2 is your mindset of how you hold yourself accountable. Do you fall on the side of being a victim of this is too hard and why is it easy for someone else to do it? It's okay for Bob or Sally, she's got it easy because of whatever life circumstance. Insert excuse here. Yeah. But the people who actually go out there and make it really work are the people that take complete accountability and ownership of their numbers and the actions that they do in the day, their behaviors, yeah? Because different behaviors lead to different results. Ever heard of the definition of insanity, for example? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. If you think that you can just outreach to about 10 people a day, then guess what? You're never actually going to learn or get better, and you fail before you even start because you've got the wrong mindset around actually what it's going to fucking take for you to become that millionaire earner, for example. Number 3 is understand your client's outcomes. So before you even speak to somebody, and people are saying, Lewis, I don't want to be doing cold calling. I don't want to be doing warm calling. I don't want to be doing outreach. Take that away from it because it's not doing you any good. If you're thinking about the stuff that you don't want to do, reframe it. Okay, so here's a little bit of a sidetrack right now, but this is really important around mindset and the psychology of getting sales, is that you've got to be thinking about what works with your brain. Do you need to really drill this in so you change your way of thinking about sales? Or is it something that you can do you've got to start to adapt so that you can make it work for you? What I mean by that is, if you don't like cold calls, for example, then don't call it cold calls. Call it something else. Yeah. Call it conversations with the right decision makers, or conversations that will give me a few more steps to get further. Just call it conversations, right? People like to have more conversations. If you're in sales, guess what? You need to be having more conversations. People can have more conversations over WhatsApp, email, LinkedIn, whatever it may be, more conversations. But ultimately, what is the most effective way of doing this? If you're starting to message people and use just words and emojis, you're losing a lot of the communication that sales is all about. People need to actually speak to people. People don't make decisions from people that they don't speak to. You rely on your marketing and you rely on your branding, and that only gets you so far, because guess what? Somebody else has got great marketing and great branding as well. When it actually comes down to, I want to invest in Lewis Haydon, I want to invest in Bob, I want to invest in Sally, then it comes down to actually having a conversation with somebody. So you need to really think about how your mindset is around how you speak to people and how many conversations you're going to be having. So think of it that way. Why don't you just measure conversations for the day? For me to have a great day today and win my day, I'm going to have 50 conversations with somebody, with different people. Okay. So understanding your client outcomes was number 3. We did sidetrack there, but that is extremely important to get that mindset right. Understanding your client outcomes is, what is it that your clients actually buy? What is it that when they're finished with you, that they're actually getting? You ever heard this saying that when people go to a hardware store and they go and buy a drill, what are they actually buying? Are they buying a drill, or are they buying the hole? Yeah, because the outcome of the drill is a hole. Yeah, and the outcome of the hole is to put some fucking shelves up so your partner stops shouting at you about putting the shelves up in the living room or the front room or whatever it may be. Okay, you're buying the outcome. So think about it. What are your clients' outcomes? Are they actually buying your product or service? And are you so obsessed around the features of what you do and how you do things? Or are you thinking about what is the outcome here for the customer? Yeah. And that really is ultimately what we need to be thinking about. What sort of outcomes do they have? Have those outcomes in mind before you even start the call. Yeah. So if the person, for example, they wanted more money, more time, they wanted less hassle, so less stress. What else could it be? They want better time with their family, quality of life, all these sort of things. There's 5 things I've just mentioned. You could almost put that into an acronym, or draw a chart out on a piece of paper and go, right, these are the 5 things that people really need. I'm going to then speak to somebody on the phone, have a conversation around these 5 things. Because if you start talking about something that is totally not those 5 things, not their outcomes, then guess what? They're just going to be nice and start talking to you again, as long as you have rapport with them. And then they'll leave the call and go, well, what the fuck was that call about? Yeah, there's nothing actually in it for them. So key thing that you want to be doing here, an easy step that you can do whilst having these conversations with people this week, is just get a little chart out and start writing down the words and finding out which people resonate with that word more often. As soon as you find 1 or 2 of those words in the conversations that they're having, you can use your script, or you can use your questioning funnel, whatever it may be. We talk about this in other YouTube episodes, by the way, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and check out the other videos as well. You can use these tools to start figuring out How can you start to get people to move from A to Z to solve their problems? But they only start to recognize those challenges and how much is it worth to them if they start to see and you help guide them by finding out their key challenges and what sort of outcomes they're looking for. Does that make sense? If you want some more information on this, by the way, then make sure you do subscribe and check out the other videos. So number 4 is positioning. What is positioning? Well, if you think about any business, right, who is the expert in actually delivering the product and the service? It would be you guys. When you work with a customer, even if it's a lifetime customer, yeah, they may be dealing with you once a month or twice a month or 3 times a month, but you deal with customers all the time. So you know the process that is best for their outcome, yeah, as long as it is genuine, right? But if it's not genuine, you listen to the wrong video in the first place. So you've got to have genuine intent here. You create that process to get them the best result. So what positioning is that you're showing the client or the customer exactly how this works from going from where you are now, point A, to point Z or point Z, depending on where you are in the world. And you're going to show them these are the steps that we take and why we do this. Okay. And part of those steps could be a more discovery meeting where you're finding out their actual needs. Yeah. This is why we do this. You're going to have a call here. You're going to have a call here. You're going to speak to Bob here. You're going to speak to Rachel here. You see what I mean? If it was to just happen, then the challenge is the customer doesn't really know what you're doing and where you're going, and they can come up with loads of different conclusions. I mean, I had it the other day. I was dealing with a recruitment agent, and the recruitment agent just called up out the blue, and one of my clients said, it feels like the person could be a bit pushy. And I'm like, well, what makes you think they're pushy? Well, I've dealt with people like this in the past, and they come across really pushy. So pushy salespeople is one of the biggest problems that will cost you a lot of sales. But if you position it first that you will be getting a call off me, and I'm not being pushy, it's just because I know that when it comes to a decision, some people need their hand held in over the line. What have I done? I've positioned that it's not about being pushy. When I start to act like this, it's because I know that there's a decision to be made and people don't always make decisions easily. So I'm going to hold your hand. It may come across pushy, but it's not pushy. It's actually me helping you get to a decision. Because if you don't make a decision, what changes? See what I've done? I've repositioned it. Now, the challenge is I see with a lot of people on YouTube, Instagram, sales trainers, is that they think that they can not talk about that stuff. And then they get to the end of it and they talk about closing and they talk about objection handling. Well, it's wrong because you should have handled the objection before it came up in the first place. So positioning allows you to also handle a lot of objections. Here's an example of an objection. An objection could be, I need to go and speak to my partner or my wife or husband around here, yeah? So I need to go and speak to a partner because I don't make any decisions. What they're actually saying is that I want to shoo you off right now so I can actually go and have a bit more time to think about it. Yeah, that could be a reason. There could be multiple reasons. Maybe they do need to speak to the partner. So in positioning on the first call, why not say to them as well that some people like to have their partners involved in this because they need to make decisions with their partners and their joint in life, and that's how they make decisions. Do you think Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so needs to be involved in any of this so they have a complete understanding to know that it's going to be a right decision for you moving forward in the future? Now, what I see a lot of on YouTube and Instagram is people will get to the end and they will say, oh, I need to go and speak to my partner about it. And then they will handle the objection. For example, they'll give out some bullshit, script as to say, oh, okay, well, how often do you not make your own decisions on your own then? What a shit way of handling an objection. The key is that you shouldn't have the objection there in the first place, because a lot of trainers will focus on how do you handle objections rather than how do you position it so you don't get objections. Yeah. Or if you do get the objection, you can then go back to the point of saying, well, remember when I mentioned about having the partner involved and so and so, and this is because of this. And then what it will do is it will dilute that objection around and go, oh, actually, what it's really about is I could do with just a bit more time to think about it. Now, if you get that objection come up, then you need to position. If you start to see that and say you do 100 calls, 10 people come through, and then 10 people start saying that, well, guess what? You need to change your process so you don't get that objection. Look, we're going into a lot more detail here, but how important is this? That the reason that you don't make the sales is because of the objections, okay? So don't handle the objection after you get it. There has got to be an element of that, but ultimately you want to handle it before it even comes up. How to do that is going to be really key for your sales success, not just for your business, but for you in general, in anything that you do, okay? Just think of the points in your life where you need to be able to handle this sort of stuff before it starts to come up. So positioning is key. If you want more information on positioning, then make sure you subscribe to this channel on YouTube, and you can follow it on Spotify as well for more detailed podcasts as well. So number 5, active listening. So what is active listening? First of all, you've got to be a listener, not a talker. Think about the conversations that you have. Measure yourself on the next call that you have with anybody, any prospect. How often are you talking and how often are they talking? And I can guarantee that the salesperson is the one who's doing the talking. If that is the case, you need to subscribe to this channel and also check out some more videos on YouTube and Spotify, because you're doing it wrong. You should not be doing the talking. You should not be doing the talking. Well, Lewis, how do I sell to people if I'm not the one who's talking? Should I write it down? No. The idea is that the penny has to drop, that they know it's the right decision, not that you know it's the right decision and you're forcing them to a decision. Yeah. Sometimes people need that little push. I agree. But they don't need you to literally get behind them and like bulldoze them into a decision. Yeah. You've got to make it so, and this isn't from a way that is ingenuine at all. This is just the psychology of human beings. You think about it, right? There's a theory here, if I go into the academic world, social exchange theory. There's got to be an exchange of something where they have to feel like they're exchanging their finances for a better outcome, okay? So that sort of outcome, that exchange can be not just in an income, but it can also be in relationships as well. It can be like an emotional bank account. It can be a relational bank account, relationship bank account. So there's lots of different elements that are happening here. So if you're the one who's doing the talking all the time, how does that penny drop to them that they start to put 2 and 2 together? Yeah. So what you need to do really is start to think about how good are your questioning skills. Do you have a questioning funnel? Because if you're asking the questions, you can zip it. And when you zip it and you keep quiet, that's when they start to calculate whether they think this is the right decision or not. Think about when they actually make the decision. Do they make the decision when they're talking, or when you're talking, or when they're actually thinking about it? And people that go away from the sale and go, oh, I actually need to go away and think about it. The reason they have to go away and fucking think about it is because you're not giving them enough time to actually process and think. So how do you do that? Well, if I ask you a question, yeah, how do you get people to process and think? Let me just go quiet for a minute. Of course, you're now thinking about what is going to come up next, and why do people start to think, no, I'm giving you time to actually process. So you need to do the same in your sales process as well. Thank you for listening to the podcast so far. A quick reminder that the A Players podcast and community remains free. The reason we do this podcast is because I believe that a great question to ask is, what advice would you give your younger self? For me, I wish I had a guide that showed me the exact steps to reach 100k a year in any job, and how much my life would be accelerated if I'd cut through that noise and just focused on those steps. We do not run ads or endorse sponsors, because it is our mission to give back and share with you, the listener, knowledge gained from working with highly successful individuals and extensive research in management science, so that everyone has access to tools that can accelerate their income and give them the opportunity to step into wealth. In line with allowing us to achieve that mission, we ask that you think about, how did you end up on this podcast today? Maybe it was through finding it on YouTube or Spotify, or word of mouth. So please help feed forward by subscribing to the podcast, and also share this podcast with another leader like you that you feel this podcast could really help out in helping them increase their personal income too. Let's get back to the show. Active listening is listening to what they're saying, talking about their outcomes, and then they're starting to add 2 and 2 together, okay? They're starting to come up with all the answers. You can then probe and go, okay, what do you mean? Tell me more about that then, yeah? Or you mentioned that you wanted to have a more time, or you wanted to make more money, or you wanted this new vehicle. I'm curious, what is it about that vehicle that really stands out for you? Well, it's about this, this, and this, and this. Oh, so XYZ is what's important to you and not that one. Is that what am I heading in the right direction? Help me out so I can guide you in the right direction here. There's a plethora of options, thousands of options. I want to make sure you've got the right option. Yeah. It may not even be our business, by the way. It could be somebody else's, but I know enough people in the industry to make sure that you get what you need. Yeah. But you need to know their outcomes. Okay. Again, you want more content on this, then make sure that you check out the other videos. So step number 6, you're coaching people. Ultimately, you need to be the coach. You need to be a sales coach for them. Not a sales coach as in you're training salespeople, but you need to hold their hand and go, look, you may not have ever bought a Porsche before, an Aston Martin or a Rolls Royce or a helicopter or a jet or a house like this, whatever it may be. But I know that you've never been there before. I've worked with a lot of people in doing this as well. And trust me, I've seen a lot of people that have gone through this same sort of decision. So what you need to be doing here is coaching them so they've got all the information that they need to make an informed decision, right? Of course, you want to position that as well, that you're not being pushy here, but you understand that people just need that little hold in their hand so that they can get the best outcome. Because one of the reasons why they might not have made the decision before is because they've talked themselves out of it because they didn't have a great salesperson coaching them. See what I mean? So if you start to think about that you're here to coach them to a decision, how does that start to help you with your mindset and help them with making the right decision as well? And number 7 is ultimately, we've talked about the psychology elements of it. We've talked about what you can say. There'll be plenty more videos, and there has been recorded in the past as well. But ultimately, number 7 is GSD. GSD, what does GSD mean? So we have GSD in a lot of my different businesses that I invest in. And it's simply this: get shit done. Don't need to say any more about that. Stop overthinking it. Stop thinking about stuff that might happen or might not happen, and just get shit done. Yeah. If you've got 100 people to call within a day, within a week, within a month, whatever your number and standards may be, yeah, because there's all different sorts of salespeople that might be listening to this, whether you're a small business, whether you're a large business, whether you're a sales manager, whether you're a sales trainer that's listening in for the psychology of this stuff. We'll all agree, right? Stuff doesn't happen if you just meditate on a rocket or overplan stuff. You need to get shit done. Yeah. Everybody will agree with that. Every successful salesperson, sales trainer, sales manager, sales director, entrepreneur, investor, get shit done. Yeah. YouTube creator. How do you get good at YouTube? Create more content. You learn, you do it along the way. If you just go and learn all the stuff around the theory of it and you start to overplan it, well, you never actually try it and you never get shit done. So how do you know what works and what doesn't work? You test it, you measure it, and you try it out. Okay. So these have been 7 obscenely easy sales techniques. Would you agree they're obscenely easy? So which ones are you going to apply this week? Which ones do you really think that you need to dig deeper on? If you need to dig deeper, then make sure you check out the other videos as well, as I've mentioned throughout this YouTube video. In fact, I did one last week on how to be a sales pro and why being a closer is actually damaging your sales. Go and check out that video. The link is in the notes below. So remember, you need to be taking ownership of your sales if you're going to increase your income and the business's income as well. So what are you going to do differently? What are the 7 are you going to pick and focus on this week to make sure you get more customers and more sales? Be great.